So, an hour ago, Unbox Therapy had made a video called The Future Flagship Smartphones. And in the video, he talks about the iPhone 11 and 11 Max, as well as the Samsung Galaxy 11 and 11 Plus. And there are many points that I do not agree with. So this video is kind of like my reaction to his video. And his channel link and video link will be directly in the description below. So if you just want to check him out, he is a pretty cool guy. And I do respect him. It's just some points in this video doesn't make sense. So yeah, check him out after you watch this video. And if you enjoy it, press the like button too. Alright, let's get started.
Ready? So these are some metal slabs, but they're interesting metal slabs. Interesting because these slabs represent the most highly anticipated, probably, devices that are going to come out soon.
That's right.
On the right-hand side over here, we have the next generation Galaxy Note represented, and then over here is the entire Apple lineup. Well, now the iPhone is a little bit less interesting because I've already kind of profiled it. We had the clone version as well, which actually probably isn't all that close.
Yes. So he acknowledges that the clones that he made a video about isn't that close, and it could have deceived many people, which is millions, who watched that exact video. The phone doesn't look like the actual iPhone that it's supposed to look like, and many people started to make their own decisions about it, when that's not even the right design, and he acknowledges it. So next time, I just hope he doesn't make a video like that.
To the eventual iPhone 11, these are likely a lot closer, especially when it comes to the camera implementation. But then
That's right.
I actually looked at or held the next generation Note format. So over here, for the first time ever, you're going to have two versions of the Galaxy Note series. You're going to have the standard Note 10 and then the Note 10 Plus, which gets even bigger. And compared to the max version of the next gen iPhone,
Huge phone.
If I flip it around, it's substantially more screen, especially in the height department. Now, if you look at this closely, what you'll notice is this tiny little representation of where the frame will be. And instead, this is going to have glass that wraps around right to this tip of this edge right here.
I'm just going to add a comment right here. And basically, a lot of people who uses Galaxy devices, they have this common complaint about the corners and edges being too sharp. So when they hold the phone, it feels like it's digging into their hand. And it's not a pleasant feeling. I've held a couple in my hand before, especially the Galaxy S10, which one of my friends have. And it's kind of true. It does not feel that pleasant. And when you're using the phone, it sometimes triggers on the corners and edges of the screen where you're not meaning to, because the screen is curved. So although it looks really cool and it gives it extra screen to body ratio, it's not that big of a feature to be excited about. And he in this video makes it look like it's the biggest thing in the world, when it's really not. So just acknowledge that, please.
And it's going to be glass, of course, on the front and the back. So presumably you'll have a display that stretches from the very far corner, top corner, to the very far bottom, whereas in Apple's case, you're working with a bit of a bezel, and then, of course, you're still going to maintain the current version, or at least something very close to the current version of the Face ID notch that exists. Whereas in Samsung's case, it looks like they're going to have the smallest hole punch setup that they've ever had implemented. This is scaled down quite significantly from what we're currently looking at, especially on the S10 Plus, which has the larger dual front-facing camera hole punch. I don't know, it's probably half the size.
Another thing that I don't understand about Samsung's phones are that sometimes they put the hole punch on the top left corner on their cheap phones. And on their Galaxy S10s, they put it on the top right corner, which means they have to program different codes for different phones, which I assume takes more work, although I'm not a good person to ask these questions about because I don't code. And now they're putting it in the middle, which is the best approach in my opinion. But wouldn't that mean more work for the team that programs? Anyways, I'm just glad they finally figured out what's best. And I hope they don't move it again.
Of the hole punch on the standard version Galaxy S10. So what does that mean for you? It just means a whole lot more screen in this form factor. Now, weirdly enough, it gets a bit confusing as far as which one of these you're supposed to go to, because like I said in the past, the Note series was perceived already as a professional option, as a kind of pro version of the S range. Like you had the S10 or S9 previously, and then you had the Note series for maybe even slightly bigger battery, slightly bigger display, and then the pen input. But now you've got two versions of it, so it might get a bit confusing for customers. That said, options are always good. But the standard Note series, size-wise, still the screen is somewhere in the same territory as the Max version of the iPhone, though it does look to be...
Now, if you look at the video, clearly the iPhone is wider than the Galaxy Note 10. And he never acknowledges it in the video, which is taking me off a little. Anyways, let's keep watching.
Slightly more narrow, but then in your hand it feels tiny comparatively to the Max version of the iPhone.
Yes, because it's less wide.
Of this very sharp edge
and
you've been able to engineer.
Look, he even says it's a sharp edge, okay? And it doesn't feel pleasant to most people. He just never says it in the video.
Again, this is going to feel likely even better when you have the glass metal combination. But even right now, I mean, this feels way smaller than my OnePlus 7 Pro. This feels smaller than most flagships I've held in a while. So then you're like, okay, I guess there's a portability component. There's a single-handed functionality component to the smaller size Note. But when it comes to Note users in general, I have to believe they're going to gravitate towards the bigger one, because typically that's the reason to go for this particular device, is kind of to get the biggest form factor that's out there, especially when you consider using the pen. If you're into using the pen, then you can, it's going to be a two-handed scenario anyway. So anyhow, we're going to see two versions. I don't think there's going to be any kind of performance difference between these two from a...
Exactly. They're using the same chip.
Will obviously get a bigger display and a bigger battery to go with that bigger display. Maybe a few extra pixels on that display as well, but otherwise, I think you're going to see similar chips inside, similar performance specs. So it'll just come down to that. And then, and also maybe you'll see the bigger charger, the higher wattage charger go with the Pro version, the Plus version, whatever it is they happen to call it. Okay, now on the Apple side over here.
Yay, finally, my favorite side.
For me is, this is the first time I've seen all three of the potential iPhone 11s together in the same spot. The Max is the only one I played with in the mock-up and the clone version.
The clone is fake. It's bad.
It's basically the same specification size-wise as the current version. It's very close. The camera cutout, it's controversial. People have different opinions on it. Jack thinks it looks terribly ugly. I think people will probably get used to it.
Yeah, so many people think that it's terribly ugly. And I understand why. But if you look back when the iPhone 7 Plus first came out, everyone said the dual camera looked so ugly, and no one was going to buy that phone because of that. Now if you look at it, it doesn't look ugly. We just weren't used to it at that time. And same thing with the iPhone 10. When everyone looked at the dual camera lens, they were like, ew, it's vertical. That's so ugly. That's what Apple calls innovation now, when they don't even look at the screen or anything about it. And now, look at the iPhone 10. Does that look ugly to you? That's what this is about. Also, that is functional. The 3-camera lens has the same distance between all 3 of them, which forms a triangle, and that will improve the computing part and the processing part of the photos. And it seems like from earlier patents, what Apple is trying to do is that use all 3 of their cameras at once when taking the photo. So when you crop into a photo, it's still going to be really high resolution. And you can even crop out a photo, which means you can reveal more from what you didn't take in the first take. I hope that makes sense. Because of their ultra wide angle lens, and telephoto lens are taking photos at the same time, and because of their distance with each other, it makes the computing and processing part way easier.
They normally do with Apple devices, Apple had to go and do some re-engineering here. They had to advance to a certain degree because all these other manufacturers are sticking more cameras on. They had to do something. But what they did scale-wise is they made the cheap model, the R model, which is represented in the center here, will likely only have 2 cameras. They made it in between the 2 from a scale perspective. So as you can see, it scales up accordingly here.
Yes, they did that too when they released the iPhone XS.
Feeling somewhat small by today's standards. This would be the R represented here in the middle, and then we have the...
If you hold the metal slabs, the width of the iPhone 11 is the same as the Galaxy Note 10, not the Plus version. So obviously you can see some biasism in his video, although a little is fine. Just don't try to appear like you're not biased when you are. That's one tiny thing I don't like about Unbox Therapy. Everything else about him is fine, and his videos are pretty good. It's just the biasism are a little bleeding into the factual information.
Big boy on the far end of the spectrum. Should I get a measuring tape?
No need.
The standard version,
the standard
iPhone
version
11
is 5.8
model over here
inch.
coming in diagonal
inch.
measurement at around
5.8 inch.
About 5 3/4 inches measured diagonally, somewhere in that territory. The budget R version, of course, would be a bit larger there.
6.1 inch.
Similar to the current model, probably. It's
6.1.
looking around 6 inches. And the biggest max version of the next generation iPhone
is 6.5 inches.
Around 6.5 diagonally.
Right.
Now, where things get interesting, in my opinion, is on the Note side, because, as I mentioned, you have the display really moving around
taller, though,
the edge of the device, so you kind of have to measure it almost from the very corner to corner. And in this form factor, I mean, you're measuring close to 6.5 on the little Note series. And when you hold these two together, they feel like total.
Yes, and there's a problem with measuring diagonally. You can have a square that's diagonally, say, 4 inches. And you can have a super long strip that also measures diagonally at 4 inches. That doesn't mean they have the same surface area, because the square is way bigger. It's just the way we measure diagonally that makes the difference. So I don't think measuring this way would be that accurate. Although the Samsung phones will have more pixel density, but no one's looking at their phone like this. Unless you're using VR, then go ahead. So
totally different size phones. Just because of the way Apple treats the edge of the device.
No, it's because they're actually different sizes. One's just taller than the other.
And it feels more narrow, so it just is a lot more comfortable for one-handed use. And then if you go up to the big guy, the Pro Plus version of the Note,
which is still really tall, which is
it's almost
good for some people.
Diagonally.
Just another comment. When the iPhone 10 first came out, everyone complained about how tall the phone is. And they were like, oh, I can't reach control center. It's too high up. And now Samsung releases a super tall phone that's way taller than the iPhone 11. And no one says anything about it. Strange, huh?
On this device, and it feels, I would say, it doesn't feel all that much bigger than the max version of the iPhone. So if you're a power user and you're looking for the kind of ultimate screen to body ratio, the ultimate screen that you can get in a package that's manageable, I think there's no doubt here that this particular implementation on the Samsung side is going to give you more screen for your scale, and that's not even
Not
factoring
necessarily.
in the bezel and the notch, which is of course occupying some of the real estate. All right, so there you have it.
Yeah, the notch is a big deal for most people. And you might hear people say, "Oh, I don't care about the notch," and or it doesn't bother me, but it is an intrusion. And same thing with the hole punch. It's also an intrusion. It's just a way smaller one. But you do need to acknowledge that the notch contains Face ID, which is an extremely secure way to unlock your phone and do much more with it. And that costed Apple so much money to invent that. And there isn't any other way that's actually better than that yet. You might say the ultra fingerprint sensor on the Galaxy, but that's still less secure. It might be faster, but it's also less reliable. So buy at your own risk.
It represented in their metallic structures the future of flagship smartphones from Apple and Samsung. And now I guess you get to select, you get to tell me which one it is that you're waiting for or most excited for. Man, this.
I'm kind of surprised how much he's able to talk about 5 slabs of metal. It's really impressive. I want to learn how to do that. And in the end, he's going to ask you, choose the one you want, or that's what he's implying. And then just nudge you a little towards the Samsung. Because that's basically what he does every time he compares iPhones with Samsung phones. Listen here.
Man, the stuff is stacking up. I would say at this point, I am pretty confident that these here are very close representations of the eventual devices based on what's leaked up until this point and the fact that this type of stuff is showing up at the studio to begin with. I think Apple users are going to have to become happy with this particular camera implementation.
You see, he talks about the camera again, which previously he stated that his friend did not like. That's just what you have to deal with. Yeah. Although it's just a small problem with otherwise a great channel that he has. So check him out. But before you do that, be sure to press the like button and subscribe. Also, I recently got around 30 subscribers, which is great. But if you're watching this video and you haven't clicked the bell, please do that because YouTube isn't actually recommending or putting my video in your subscription box even after you subscribed. So you have to click the bell to actually have most of my video appear in your subscription feed. I'm sorry, but that's just a reality, and that's how YouTube works. Anyways, click somewhere on the screen to, I don't know, watch a video, and that's about it. So click the screen, please.